Hi, everyone. This is Paul Casey, the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame educational video series, where we discuss Kenpo, sometimes forms, history, techniques, uh, theories, philosophies, concepts, as established by the founding Grandmaster Edmund K. Parker, American Kenpo. And right now, we are very lucky and very honored to have with us one of the 2023 Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame Award nominees. This gentleman is going to share his story. We're very honored. I hope you enjoy this. With us today is Grandmaster, and let's welcome to the show. Lincoln, welcome to the show.
Hi, Paul. Thank you very much for having me.
Ian, it's okay. I call you Lincoln.
Call me Lincoln, please.
Thank you very much. Lincoln, we're just going to ask a few things because our viewing audience here is always interested in finding out a little bit about who the nominees are and not so much why you were nominated, but really your contributions and why you were brought on this journey in Kenpo. So why don't you just tell us a little bit, how did you get introduced to the Kenpo community or martial arts in general?
Okay, I arrived in Pasadena in August of 1964. A job offer from Thrifty Drug. I'm a pharmacist in East Pasadena. And I was interested in karate. I saw the movie Bad Day in Black Rock with Spencer Tracy, one-armed man. He defeated all these other guys there. And I was very curious, and I wanted to do something like that. So in Buffalo, they had no karate schools at that time. And I saw an article in a magazine about karate. And I sent off for the book. I looked at the book. And I tried to do the techniques, not much help. And later on, when I knew Ed Parker, I showed him the book. He chuckled a little bit. He says, well, we don't do things quite that way. And he showed me something else. So anyway, on my way to work, I was living in Pasadena, and I used to go up Lake Street. On Lake Street, there was 20 Tollner's karate school. And I would see the guys in the window going up, and I come back from work, I'd watch them again. And I was interested. I says, I have to go and check this thing out there. And I was living in this apartment building, and one of my friends there, Jim Robeson, was a Pasadena policeman. And he says, no, you don't want to go there. He says, you want to go to Ed Parker's on Walnut Street. And so I said, okay. So he took me over to Ed Parker's over there, and I went into school, and this guy says, you want to do karate? I says, yeah. He says, come on the mat. He says, come on the mat. He says, throw a right punch at me. Okay. Threw a punch, grabbed my arm, threw me to the ground. I said, that was pretty good. So I got interested. So he says, you want to sign up? I says, yeah. He says, how much? He says, $60 for 3 months. I said, what happens if I don't like it in a month? He said, no. He says, it'll take you at least 3 months to get used to the system. So I signed up. And then, but he said, after 3 months, it goes to $15 a month for lessons. Imagine 15 bucks. So anyway, I started there, and their classes were Monday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Thursday. My first instructor was Paul Pasek. And I went to the class Monday night, and I got to the class, and Paul says to me, go over in the corner and learn your blocks. He says, I'm going to send Eric over there. Well, Eric is this 12-year-old kid. He's going to teach me blocks. I went over there, and he taught me the blocks. I got back in the class, and that was funny. When I got home, I told my wife, well, how did it go? I says, this 12-year-old kid is teaching me blocks. And she laughed at me. Says, all right, the kid was good. And so he would teach on Monday, Wednesday, and then Danny and Asano used to teach Tuesday, Thursday. So when I couldn't go Monday, Wednesday, I'd go to Danny's class. Now, Paul's class was more hardcore. He was, they used to call him young Mr. Parker, Paul Pasek. And Danny was more of the history, the philosophy of the martial arts, in addition to the self-defense. And I liked both guys. Both teachers were good. I didn't meet Ed Parker until maybe a week or so later. I got my brand new gi. I was in the locker room there trying to put on my gi, and Parker turned and looked at me. He says, "Hi, my name's Ed Parker. What's yours?" I said, "Lincoln Conti." He says, "I saw you're having trouble trying to tie your belt." He says, "Let me help you." So he ties my belt and looks at me. He goes, "Now you look official." I says, "Okay." Danny left sometime in 65, and Paul Pacific stayed on maybe to the end of 65. And Paul Pacific went into the armed services. And then after that, I had many teachers. I had Louis Solis, teacher. He signed my very first certificate, one tip, and no color belts in those days. We had no names. We had about a dozen names for techniques and nothing taught in any specific order. So Louis Solis, and then we had Leonard Mao, Danny Rodardi, Richard Steele, Jerry Poteet, went with Bruce Lee, Tom Gow, Dion Steckling. Leonard Mao was in the school. Tak Kubota came over once, and they wanted to spar. So Leonard Mao was a brown belt. So Tak Kubota came in. Leonard clocks him right in the jaw, knocks him across the room, boom, down on the floor. He gets up, no point, no face, no good. In those days, nobody knew you were not supposed to hit him in the face. Also, Dion Steckling was fighting, and he used to do it. Dion was this tall, lanky guy. You would see him walking, he looked like Ichabod Crane. He got on the mat, put his gi on, he looked like Superman then. He had fast hands and fast feet. He was doing it at a tournament. He says, "I'm poking these guys in the eyes, chopping them in the throat, no points." He says, "I'm through with this tournament stuff there." That says, all right. So anyway, I met Roger Meadows in 64, 65. And Roger and I remained good friends up until he died in 2019. Roger would teach a daytime class and also Friday nights. But every 2 to 3 weeks, Roger would take us over to Dave Hebler's school. And we trained with Dave, for whatever time it was. My wife at that time, Stephanie Conti, used to come to the class. She would watch it. And she would ask Ed, "Can I join the class?" He says, "No, we have no women in the class." He says, "Can you start a women's class?" He said, "Well, she badgered him. And so he starts a women's class, right? So my first wife was the very first woman in a Kenpo karate class. So nobody knows that because the class eventually, the women started going to the class to integrate it. And I don't know when that happened. But anyway, my wife was a tomboy. She had 2 older brothers, and she very athletic. And after several months, her first instructor and only instructor was Hal Parks. Nobody knows his name except the old guys. He trained up with the old guys. For whatever reason, he quit when he was a brown belt. He got married or whatever he did. Hal was her teacher. And when she got good, Ed used to take her to a demonstration. I'd go along, but, Ed was trying to show that women can do the art too. So he would take her along, she would perform, and she was very good. Sometime in 1965, Bruce Lee comes to the school. Ed brought him in. I think he's going to, help him get into the movies. That's what Bruce wanted. And so my wife came, she was at class, and she comes home, she goes, "You got to go see this Chinese kid. He's really fast." So I rushed down to the school. No Bruce Lee. Next time she's in her class, runs home again and tells me, "You got to run down. That Chinese kid is there." So I run down again. No Bruce Lee. I never, ever got to meet Bruce Lee. He was gone, and that was it. Sometime in I think late 66 or 1967, this Samoan kid comes in. This Samoan guy, he was no kid. And he had a brand new white belt, brand new white gi. He came in his very, very first class. So we were, after the end of the class, we turn around, 2 limes turn around and spar. And so we go around, or there, we should do, I guess, 30 seconds, whatever it was. We turn around and I see this guy, look at him. He's about 6'1", 220. I'm 5'9", 150. And I go, "Geez, I'm a 2-tipper. He's a white belt. What does he know?" What a surprise for me. Tino cleaned my clock. And that's how I met Tino. That we became very good friends after that. And after that, Ed had a daytime class. And I remember Ed used to, I had a schedule working. I'd work 10 to, from 1 to 10 and sometimes 9 to 6. So my hours were flexible and I'd be in the school all the time. Ed used to do a daytime class and I would attend. And half the time Ed would be teaching the class and depending whether it was at the beginning or the middle of the class. It was in the beginning of the class, he'd go, you get a phone call. I go, Lincoln, I got to take this call. Warm the class up. That was in the beginning. It was in the middle, he goes, Lincoln, take the class over. Keep doing that technique. And I had really, really a good time. Ed would tell stories, like he always did. And it was a wonderful experience being there during the daytime. Sometime later, I met Frank Trejo. Frank Trejo answers this ad, karate instructor wanted, no experience needed. So Frank got accepted to the program. I knew Frank for many, many years. And Frank was one of the few people who was good in forms, freestyling, had speed, power, grace, and was a great technician, as you know. I met Tom Kelly when he came to Pasadena. He and his wife, Cookie, slept on the mats until he got an apartment. Tom was one of Steve LaBondi's black belts. And I got to know Tom very, very well, just hanging around the studios, and we used to talk. And sometime later, Richard Huck Planis came in. He was one of Tom Kelly's students. He was following Tom to the school. And Tom also, Huck also slept on the mat until he found an apartment. We used to call it the Parker Motel, because everybody that came there, and we had a shower in the back, and so people could do that. Richard and Huck and I really became good friends. We used to train together. We did trap shooting together. And when I made black belt, Huck gave me his black belt. And I still have it today. I had to retire it because I wore it out. Sometime in 1907, I re-met my cousin, Jack Autry. We're at a wedding and for one of our cousins. And we started talking and we got on to martial arts, karate. And he goes, I studied karate. I says, I do too. He says, what do you do? He says, I studied Kenpo in Santa Monica. I said, I studied Kenpo in Pasadena. The last time I saw Jack, he was 5 and I was 7 years old. This is like almost 20 years later that we met right into each other. But Jack and I got to be good friends. And when I got my divorce, Jack and I became roommates for about 3 years. We were trained together at the Santa Monica School. Chuck Sullivan taught a class over in Santa Monica. And it was always a great class studying with, training with Chuck. And I consider Chuck old Kenpo. He was there in the beginning with Mr. Parker. So all those other black belts that came after them, I consider them the very first. There may have been a dozen or so of them. So sometime in the 80s, it started a Thursday night advanced class. He tried to do the same thing in Pasadena for Friday nights. After a couple of Friday nights, Roger Meadows did not show up. People stopped coming to the Friday night class, and I dropped the class. So Roger came to me, Yosh Faroya, Jack Wayne, and says, let's do a Friday night class, just techniques. We'll do forms out of 4 or 5, and if we have time, we'll do 6. He says, we'll work out. So we would work out for like an hour and a half or more, depending. And then we'd go across the street to Shakey's for beer and pizza. And this went on for many, many, many years.
It's funny you say that because they still did it all the way to the end.
Well, they did it and they're still doing it. I look back there and I says, I was one of the first guys that were in that class there. It's the class grew. Bud Anderson was in it. Paul Dye came in. Paul was in high school and he came in after that. Patty came in, but she didn't train with us then. Patty trained with Paul after, a while there. So Paul was in that class too. And there was probably a dozen of us. And we ran that thing through there too. We couldn't stand up anymore. Then when Roger had enough, says enough. And we'd quit. And Shakey's was just across the street and down the block. And we closed Shakey's down, drank the black beer, the dark ale, and ate that pizza. Then they started the Mojo potatoes and chicken wings or chicken. Yeah. And we did that for, I can't tell you how long, until I left Pasadena or the school moved. And they went to Covina because the school burned down or whatever it was.
But hey, I was later on. Yeah, I in the early '80s, I was a brown belt. I told Frank I wanted to join the conversation. That Friday night class, he encouraged it. It was great until I tested for black, and even then,
Did you come into that class? Were you in there?
Oh yeah, on Friday night. Yeah, the Friday night class, and to run the lights.
Right, so
Roger would usually run it. Roger would run it, or Jim Faria would run it, and it was just great. You started off with calisthenics and warming up, and then he would just take the techniques from the biggies, from 4 and 4 and a few others, and we'd run it, and we'd always run it toward the mirror. The mirror would be behind us, and you don't know who would show up. I mean, the who's who would show up, and a lot of the Kenpos from different schools would come in there, and then they would become because we'd be crazy.
Yeah, it was. I have fond memories of that, and all those guys. Roger's gone now, and so
So a few of the other guys, yeah, exactly. And as funny as that, I was lucky enough to not only know those men, but to also work out with them. And I always remember whenever Jim Faria would run a class and how he would focus in on the elbow strikes and the use of the elbows in close proximity, basically. And then Roger, I had long conversations with Roger for many years, until he passed away. Yeah. And I remember seeing him and Paula at an event. It was over in by the airport, and they were there. And what can I say? What a wonderful man. Wonderful man.
Oh, he's a great man.
All right. So Lincoln, why don't you tell us about when you tested for black belt and that experience?
Okay, I tested in I think March of 1974 over there, and the class was we had a large class. I was testing for black, and Frank Trejo and Larry Tatum were testing for brown. And the class went on for I don't know how long. Ed Parker's test went for forever. And we went on until, Ed had said enough and, turn around and whatever it was, we started. And then they pulled people out to spar, and we went like that until it says, okay, that's enough. So I remember Jack was my partner in there. I remember Jack told me after, he said, "You beat the crap out of me. What'd you do?" I said, "Well, I was a little excited about training there." So Frank got his brown belt then. Tatum got his brown belt then, back in the days. That's all Jack and I are going back then. And so that went on, and we stopped, and we got the promotion, and it was a wonderful experience for me.
So Lincoln, what are your thoughts on the martial arts journey that you've had? What were the most important points that you can remember? And what do you see for the future for Kenpo?
Wow, my journey, I'll tell you, when I started, I thought I was going to be doing this for 6 months. I said, then after I master this in 6 months, I'm going to go out there and join Bill Pearl's gym over there so I can weightlift again. And so I've been down there. I've been doing this for 59 years. and I'm still trying to master it. So I remember in there being in the beginners class and saying the 8 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock. After that was the advanced class. They kicked all us young belts off the mat, and we had to leave. And then the advanced class came in. I said, geez, I can only watch that class. So finally, Ed Parker decided, okay, we're going to have the class open. Everybody can watch. So we did that, and I looked down and I said, geez, if I could only get to the advanced class, that would be really great. That would be a real accomplishment for me. And so finally, one day I did get to the advanced class. And so I said, boy, that was really great. Now I'm in the advanced class. I'm no longer really a beginner, but of course I was still a beginner, still a beginner, so ever. And that was really, really great to, see the class the first time, and then finally to be in that class and then have somebody come in to watch me train. I didn't really think that was ever going to be possible.
What is your in this journey? What is your vision for the future of Kenpo?
Well, we have a lot of people coming in. I just hope that they can. Everybody coming in doesn't know Ed Parker. Nobody knows. Most of the people that have even black belts didn't even meet Ed Parker. He's been gone 33 years, something like that. So they don't even know who he was. So I hope that they can look back at the history and see that, and then try to be good martial artists, and then good people. They don't need people that come out there and just to be thugs. We're not teaching people we're teaching people how to defend themselves, not to be thugs. That's what you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to defend yourself, walk away from a situation as if you can. The last resort is you defend yourself or your family. And that's how it should be with the martial arts.
You are now that police officer that you met that said, no, you don't want to go here. You want to go to Ed Parker. And for all the reasons you just stated, Mr. Parker had a code of honor, and you earned that respect, and you were taught respect. And most people think that we learn the martial arts to beat people up. No, we actually don't fight. That's our last resort. And I think you said that so eloquently about what it is. Any final thoughts on the people you've met that really stood out, that left the biggest impression on you? Give me 3 people.
Well, I would say I maybe give you one. Paul Pasek, my very, very first teacher. And then Danny Inosanto. I always liked Danny's teaching, and I was very sorry when Danny left. And I have to say, Ron Chappell. Ron Chappell has been the biggest influence on my life in martial arts since Ed Parker. I have the highest respect for Ron, and his teaching, if you were to see, his mind is just like explosive. Stuff comes out of his head like I've never heard, never saw before. He can teach you stuff, your body posture, and why this is going to work and why that won't work. If your chin is forward and you're leaning forward there, you get hit on your conception vessel 1, you're going to get knocked out. And when Ron teaches, everybody stops and listens. And then I started there, and I haven't left. And every day until right now, when I go over there, something comes out of his mouth that says, where do you get that from? It's like his head's an encyclopedia going around and around and around. So that's briefly a story with him.
My experience with Dr. Chappell in the late 70s, all through the 80s until now, he took the time and the interest in me, and I don't know why. He just went out and he would share some things with me and make some comments of how to improve it. And that was the person. And I didn't seek it, and he wasn't just running around, I'm going to tell you what to do. when he did speak, you're right. You listen, and I tell you, very articulate man. He was right, precise. He saw the issue. He explained how it works. His thinking process is very much like Ed Parker. Okay, and now that Mr. Parker's gone, the only thing we can do is reference his books. But if
Yeah,
you want to hear what Mr. Parker thinks, and you want to see the future of what Ed Parker envisioned for Kenpo, then spend some quality time with Dr. Ron Chappell or students like you, and they will understand a lot more about what was the principles and concepts of Ed Parker's Kenpo. I will say this much. Lincoln, thank you so very much. It's been truly an honor to talk to you here
my honor
today.
too.
And I'm really
Absolutely.
looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas again. I know that Dr. Chappelle and everyone else that believes in you is very excited about your nomination. And it's going to be a wonderful evening. And so, with no further ado, folks, on behalf of the Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame, the educational video series, my name is Paul Casey, and I'd like to thank our Grandmaster Lincoln Conti for coming on today to talk. If you have any questions, reach out to him. With no further ado, full salute.